Welcome to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Real, taking time out of your day to come watch this episode. I really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe for me. I'd really appreciate that as well. That's the best way you can support this channel and help me grow my content and grow this channel to where I'd like it to be. Everybody hit the like button for me on the way in on this video today. That also helps promote this video more in the algorithms, helps grow this channel more as well. Please share this content. I would really appreciate that. My guests would as well. If you would please share this episode with someone you know that maybe is interested in the topic we're talking about today. Please leave a comment below as well. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback. You can interact with myself and the guest on the panel and the live chat as well. Whatever we're talking about, just leave a comment there in the live chat. Pop in and say hello. We'll put it on the screen for you. And yeah, without further ado, let's get to the show. Welcome back to The Real with Joseph Labman. I have Joseph Labman. Hope you guys are having a good Friday. Happy Friday to you guys. Welcome into The Real. If you're new here, like I said, please like, subscribe, and share. And yeah, looking forward to today's show. It's some really crazy stuff right now coming out about the Browns and the future of the Browns, and got some training camp reports coming out. So we're a couple days in the training camp now. We're already starting to get kind of a feel of what it's looking like in training camp, what the season's probably going to look like. And so let's get right to it. Obviously, you can see by the thumbnail, as I have there, on the clock with Andrew Berry. And I'm going to break this down today and kind of paint the picture here of kind of what I see going on right now and kind of what I think we're going to see on play and unfold this upcoming season. And to start off with this upcoming season with the expectations I have, isn't very high like a lot of people. I don't see this Browns team making the playoffs this year. I definitely not. I don't see them really winning a lot of games this year. The schedule is pretty tough in terms of just like even traveling, even with, they got to travel to London and then come back, and then they got to play on the road to Pittsburgh, and they got some of the back-to-back games against tough opponents. And this team's not great from the last time we saw them. With last year, it's a 3-win team coming back. So not a great team with a lot of uncertainty. The biggest things I'm looking forward this year is to see the offensive line improve and get back to stability there. I'd like to see the defense get back to being, the defense they were 2 years ago. I think maybe with a better offense that can at least put together longer drives time-wise. Maybe that could help the defense more. I thought defense was on the field too much last year. But I don't expect this to be a successful year because, quite frankly, I don't think we still haven't found our quarterback yet. And I know we have 2 rookies, and maybe Joe Flacco's got some magic left in him. But I'm going to get to some of the reports first about the quarterback situation, what it sounds like. And based on some of the reports right now, it doesn't sound like Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco sounds very old. He's made some nice plays here and there, but he is almost 40. I think maybe he is 40. I don't know. He's around the 40-year-old. He's almost 40 years old, around 40, whatever he is. Older guy. We all know that. Some people reported he looks okay, but older. But he's probably gonna be the starter to begin the season just because he's the most experienced, and he has experience in this offense with Kevin and everybody. Kenny Pickett, reports has not looked great. Threw some picks yesterday. Or threw a pick yesterday. I know some people said he threw a pretty bad pass yesterday as well. I don't think Kenny Pickett, I don't know where all that stuff came from going into the training camp, saying Kenny Pickett might be the number one guy and all that. Kenny Pickett was never going to be the number one guy. I think Kenny Pickett is just actually, if there's a guy out of all the 4 guys here in this quarterback room that I think was like a real flyer, like let's see if he could do something, it was Kenny Pickett. I think he was, to me, as of right now, couple days out of training camp, he is the clear flyer quarterback. Like, let's see what he can do. If he works out, great. If not, maybe we could dump him somewhere else. Maybe a trade. Somebody's gonna need a veteran quarterback, whatever. Dylan Gabriel has really impressed a lot of people. I know Dylan Gabriel wasn't the popular draft pick here in Cleveland. I know I've even questioned it at times. I didn't like the pick at the time just because of his size. He has all the skill set. We know that he can make every throw. He's got a nice arm, really nice arm, athleticism, high IQ, very nice kid. I like the way he speaks to the media, very professional. I think he has all the intangibles to be a really good quarterback. But it's just the size that really scares a lot of people, obviously, because, you're going against NFL fronts, you get blitzed a lot. How's he going to manage under that kind of pressure? Teams will start to really heavily blitz on him, and how does that size affect him? But he's shown throughout his career he's always panned out and always leveled up, and won a lot of games in college and was successful, has a lot of experience. And I think that's the biggest thing that's separating Dylan Gabriel right now is his experience. All those systems that he played in all the years he had in college, the best thing that could happen for Dylan Gabriel is if he could do exactly what Bo Nix did in Denver. Because Bo Nix came out of that draft as the most experienced quarterback as well. Dylan Gabriel's the most experienced quarterback in this past draft as well. So, or it was the most experienced in this past draft, just like Bo Nix was as well, like I was saying. That to me could be his best. That could be his ceiling. To me, if Dylan Gabriel does anything magical this year, he could repeat what Bo Nix did in Denver because, like I said, with the experience, but also the IQ. And I think you're hearing from some of the reports as well. You're hearing what Tony Grossi said about him and what he's hearing, and the team was really impressed with his IQ. That he's basically, I think, what Tony Grossi said, from the neck up, a number 1 overall pick. That's pretty high praise, from a football IQ standpoint. That's pretty impressive. And so Dylan Gabriel right now seems to be the one that looks the best at camp and seems to be the one that has everybody's interest. Probably because he's newer, he's younger, but he's looked the best so far. Shedeur Sanders had a rough day 1, bounced back on day 2, had a better day, but Shedeur Sanders right now is throwing, and this came out today, and I got it right here. This is from ESPN Cleveland on both the topics I just talked about. So we'll start here with the actually, let's go back to the Dylan Gabriel part of it. So this is what Tony Grossi said today about Dylan Gabriel, and let's see what he had to say.
I think if he continues to play like practice like this and then gets into the games and puts the team in the end zone, I think then you might convince me that he's got a chance to start. But right now, I think Gabriel is closer to Kenny Pickett than Kenny Pickett is to Joe Flacco. So I fully expect Gabriel to move into number 2 at some point down the road in the preseason. I could easily see Flacco and Gabriel being 1-2 in September.
So that's the first report there from Tony Grossi, basically saying that he expects if Gabriel keeps playing the way he has in practice, Dylan Gabriel is going to move up to number 2 on the depth chart. And that Dylan Gabriel right now is really what a lot of people thought where Kenny Pickett was going to be on the depth chart behind Joe Flacco, because everybody assumes Joe Flacco is number 1 just because of the experience, and he's better than Kenny Pickett. And, Joe Flacco, like I said, what he did here in the past, he has that kind of, he's the automatic number 1 because of the experience, and he's Joe Flacco. Let's be honest. So we all know why. And so, but Dylan Gabriel, though, is actually jumped. It seems like has leaped Kenny Pickett so far by a lot, and that Dylan Gabriel has stood out the most. And Shedeur Sanders has not really got any chance with the first team still. And at practice, Shedeur Sanders is. Let me go back to this one here. Let me go back if I can. I don't know why I can't. Oh, maybe I'll go this way. Shedeur Sanders is not only not throwing to the first team, but he's throwing to equipment staff members instead of receivers at all.
Apparently, Kenny Pickett yesterday threw quite possibly the worst pass in the history of Browns training camp. Shedeur Sanders apparently is throwing not to receivers, but to equipment guys. They've got equipment guys like Jug snapping him the ball and then also running the routes. I don't know. Mahomes is throwing to Kelsey. Shedeur is throwing to equipment guys. Okay. Dylan Gabriel looks like the best quarterback in camp. Joe Flacco looks old. I don't know. 4 for 10 yesterday. But, Chris, I'm starting to think that once the season starts, we're actually going to utter the name Dylan Gabriel more than we will the name Shedeur Sanders.
And that's via ESPN Cleveland. Shout out to Goldhammer and Tony Grossi there. Great job reporting. So, yeah, that's the picture right now with the quarterback battle. It seems like Dylan Gabriel, like he just said there, is the best quarterback thus far in camp. But also, Flacco looks a little older, but Flacco's probably going to get the nod to start just because of the experience, and Dylan's a rookie quarterback. But Shedeur Sanders, though, I know the one quarterback who's had probably the most intrigue about it of all the quarterbacks in the room going into camp, he's throwing the equipment guys. He's not throwing the receivers even. And so what does this all say to me with this quarterback battle? And I have a deeper not to say theory, but I have a deeper take on all this today. What I think is really going on right now, right? So I wanted to share that opening, warm up with that there, right? What's going on at camp first, and what are the direction of the quarterbacks? Where are they heading? And so now I move on to my meat and potatoes of this whole thing. What you see in the thumbnail there from Andrew Berry, where it says on the clock, right? And what do I mean by all this? And so we hear that Dylan Gabriel's probably going to be taking over the reins. What it sounds like, what he just said, and what's being reported, what people are seeing at camp, Joe Flacco's going to start the season and expect Dylan Gabriel to be the first one off the sideline to take over when Joe Flacco's done. And it's going to be Dylan Gabriel's season, pretty much. And Kenny Pickett and Shador Sanders, I mean, he just said there, Kenny Pickett threw one of the worst passes probably in Browns training camp history yesterday. That's pretty bad because we've had a lot of bad ones. So that's pretty impressive in itself. But Kenny Pickett, though, I mean, but he's still getting more reps than Shador Sanders. Shador Sanders is throwing to equipment guys. He basically is throwing the you and I off the street. So what does this all mean, right? And why do I put this in the thumbnail of on the clock? Here's what I think about all this. When the Browns took Shador Sanders, I don't believe that was really their guy. And a lot of people in the media don't believe that was really their guy, right? And I got to give a shout out to Garrett Bush. He was at the practice yesterday on the Alto Cleveland Sports Show. One of my favorites to listen to. I love his takes, the way he just explains things and his analysis. Love G. Bush. And he was on today, and he gave his in-person opinions of what he thinks is going on, right? And I believe it's this one here. He was talking about this quarterback battle. I thought he gave an interesting take here. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, I think he could play. But if you are not given the opportunity, like it's more. I think this is more about, frankly, not about if Shador Sanders can play, or not about if he's behind somebody's mentally, or he's not picking the playbook. It's something to be said for this is what our plan was, and how are we going to stick to it? Because I came away from training camp listening to Andrew Berry and listening to Kevin Stefanski. I don't know about Kevin Stefanski because, he came away unbothered. I said it. The two unbothered awards of the camp was Shador looked like he was like, hey, listen, I'll give him credit for that. He's not discouraged. He was jovial. He talked to everybody he's seen. And it looks like he's like, yo, I'm here for the process. I get my chance. I'm going to try to do something with it. Kevin Stefanski was the second unbothered pick. It looked like Kevin Stefanski had already had his deal signed up. I said, oh, look how he talked. But Andrew Berry, I believe that Andrew Berry in his mind has already targeted a quarterback in 26.
I mean, that's.
I feel in the way his energy is, I feel he has targeted. I think he's done his due. I think he's tried to do his homework 2 years in advance. He has a guy in mind or a couple of guys in mind, but his problem is he got to survive to make the pick.
Which goes back to a lot of what we said.
So interesting stuff there by G. Bush, right? And I agree with everything he said there. Kevin Stefanski seems very unbothered. He seems like his typical self. Andrew Berry, to me, and now I'm going to give what I think what's going on here, why I put this in the thumbnail today, and why I just played that clip. And like he said there at the end, Andrew Berry seems like it seems like he has another guy in mind that he's targeting the next year's draft. And Jason Lloyd, who's a reporter, said on the side there, I've been saying that for a while. That's what a lot of people believe, right? But Andrew Berry, like he said there at the end, is he going to be around to make the pick? And what I think is going on, what's becoming clear and evident to me, is that Shador Sanders was clearly taken because Jimmy Haslam wanted him taken, which is what I know G. Bush said that today. I said on the show last week, a lot of people have been saying that because Dylan Gabriel is taken first in the third round. Dylan Gabriel is, in my opinion, that is Andrew Berry's guy. That's the one he selected. That's the one I think they have to get out there and play this year, that they have to evaluate. Now, why do I think they have to get him out there evaluate, not Shador? Why did they take Shador to begin with? Here's what I think is going on. I think Andrew Berry, like I said the other day, to me, the feeling to me with Andrew Berry is he's on the hot seat. And I think there's another plan that's that has that I'm gonna get into here in a minute. That's been going viral the last couple of days that we talked about. I believe it was Sunday night on the show or Monday night. Oh yeah, Monday night on the show. Excuse me. Andrew Berry to me is on the hot seat. The way he's acting right now, like what G. Bush has said, he seems very bothered. He just doesn't seem very interested in this team. His tone. He made some comments yesterday as well, talking about Quinshon Judkins that I thought were interesting. I believe I have those right here. He was talking about the Quinshon Judkins situation, right? And he was talking about the situation with Quinshon, which we all know about what happened, right? But listen to what he says here. I'm gonna break it down why I think what he says here is interesting to me, and why I think to me it speaks to he really is feeling some pressure. Here's what Andrew had to say yesterday about the Quinshon thing, and I'll break it down.
I'd start by saying that, anytime not just a player, but a member of your organization is involved in a legal situation, and particularly one that, involves allegations of domestic violence, you lose a ton of sleep over it. And you lose a ton of sleep over it, not just because of the seriousness of the allegations, but also because of the amount of time and energy you spend really vetting any person who comes into your organization. And then probably for us in the past 2 years in particular, the amount of time and resources we spent on the education part of it, with our not just with our players but with our whole organization.
And so notice what he said there. He said it's not just because he's losing sleep. He said you lose sleep over it. And he said that twice and maybe 3 times. And what do I think? Why is that significant, what he said there? And like he said, it's not just because he said it's not just because of the allegations that are very serious with domestic violence, but also because of the amount of time you put into a player that you were high on, that you had high expectations for this season, that you really needed to rely on this season, because you didn't bring back Nick Chubb, Andrew Berry, because you felt it was time to move on, and we thought we had a younger breed, a younger horse that we could bring in, who we thought was going to fit our scheme and could really help us get back to that running game, which was, in turn, what's going to give us the most success this upcoming season, to have the best shot of winning games, getting back to that running game and going back to the old scheme that we've all talked about, the inside zone, wide zone scheme, the zone running scheme, excuse me, and having a back that can fit that scheme like Judkins. That's why they took him. And a lot of people have said that. That's why they took Judkins over Henderson, because they felt Judkins fit their scheme more. I have no problem with that. I think that's actually a smart thing to do. But, would I have taken Henderson? Maybe. But here, I have no problem with the Judkins pick from a football standpoint. No doubt about it. And there wasn't any red flags publicly we heard about him in college at Ohio State. Maybe at Ole Miss. I don't know. I have to go look into that. But to my knowledge, there wasn't anything known in college or anything. So, but I think going back to Andrew Berry, why I think he's on the hot seat, why I think he's feeling pressure, I think he just said it. Like I said, their chance of winning a lot of games this season was a lot of it was, rooted in that run game being successful. And it's like what Myles Garrett said last year. A lot of times the defense, why they weren't as good last year, is because they were on the field too much, because the offense could not sustain drives. They never could put together long, sustained drives, and the defense would constantly out on the field, getting gassed by the end of the game, giving up big plays, and they had no energy. And that was really their biggest problem defensively last year. And now the running back that you selected isn't going to be available. Now we have to go to Dylan Sampson, who's a smaller back who you brought in for more different packages, really, and was a 5th-round pick. And Jerome Ford, who I think is still be a really good player, I don't know if he fits that scheme they really want to run fully well enough. I think he's a lot better, maybe more on the gun. He can run that scheme, but Jerome Ford's used more as a 2nd, 3rd string back, right? And so can he get to 1,000 yards if you get enough carries? Absolutely. If they utilize him properly, which they may have to adjust their scheme now, because it doesn't sound like Quinshon Judkins is going to be playing much ball this season. Obviously it's still early on. It's still a process, but based on the stuff I've heard from certain reporters and people I ran into, he's getting at least 5 games, minimum 5 games, maybe more. So, and if this team, they're not the way this team looks on paper. If they get to the first quarter of the season or halfway to the season and they're not playing well, the season's probably over. There ain't going to be, because they'll be out of the playoff picture most likely, and there ain't going to be no purpose. Even if he does come back late in the season, it's not going to matter. And so why do I think, though, Dylan Gabriel is really getting pushed up that depth chart right now? Not because I think he's playing better, but also he has to play this year. And why does he have to play this year? For who? For this guy. Dylan Gabriel, and I'm going to say this right now, either it's Joe Flacco, although if not Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel has to be the one to save Andrew Berry's job, in my opinion. If Dylan Gabriel can come in here and be Bo Nix 2.0, I think Andrew Berry will be doing high fives and skipping around the the facility, and probably with a breath of fresh air, his job will be safe. If not, I think his job could be in jeopardy. And I think Kevin Stefanski feels no pressure right now. And why is that? So there was a report the other day that you guys probably saw that's gone viral from Colin Cowherd, right? And Colin Cowherd really broke down some of the stuff we talked about on Monday, or about the Arch Manning stuff that came out, right? And so if you go back to Monday, I believe it was this one here, going back to them, Goldhammer and Rizzo on ESPN Cleveland, Riz reported this on his show on Monday, I believe it was, Monday morning. Here's what he had to say.
Perfect world, that guy would be in Cleveland next year. Yeah. And they would do anything to get him.
Doesn't that excite you? It does me.
Okay, let's rewind here.
I know he would not admit it. And I know it's nothing that they want to talk about. But I'm telling you, the thirst that Jimmy Haslam has for Arch Manning is unmatched. Unmatched. You know the connection that Haslam's donated a ton of money to Tennessee. They have a relationship with Manning family. I don't think it's a coincidence they acquired a second first-round pick. I don't know whether this kid's coming out or not. It was described to me by a billionaire that said, in a perfect world, that guy would be in Cleveland next year. Yeah. And they would do anything to get him.
Doesn't that excite?
And so we reacted to that report on Monday, right? We broke it down, and I shared my theory on Monday as well, how the connections with the Manning family, right? But it got a little deeper 2 days later. Colin Cowherd comes out, I believe 2 days later on Wednesday, and old Uncle Colin with some fireworks. I mean, this is a pretty this went viral. Here's what Colin Cowherd's report. I know a lot of you may have seen it, but here it is again. What he's hearing about the Browns and Arch Manning.
But here is a story that I started last week that is not a conspiracy theory. It is what I would call a reality of relationships. So Tony Rizzo talking about the Browns owner, he's a Cleveland sports talk show host, Jimmy Haslam, and the Manning family and Arch Manning. Here you go.
I know it's nothing that they want to talk about, but I'm telling you, the thirst that Jimmy Haslam has for Arch Manning is unmatched. That Haslam's donated a ton of money to Tennessee. They have a relationship with Manning family. I don't think it's a coincidence they acquired a second first-round pick.
It is not. In fact, this is the worst kept secret in the South. Haslam, Jimmy, owner of the Browns, huge SEC Tennessee booster, leans heavily on the Manning family. Very close to the Manning family. Yes, that's not make-believe. Arch Manning is part of the Manning family, and this is where Nick Saban comes in. Saban is incredibly close to not only Jimmy Haslam, but Saban's close to the Manning family as well. And so Saban, if he could land, I'm told, a top quarterback like Harbaugh going to the Chargers for Herbert, he would take a phone call for the NFL. And there are two teams guaranteed to be awful this year in the NFL, Cleveland and the Saints. Nick Saban has coached in Cleveland with the Browns under the Belichick staff, and he coached at LSU. This is not a conspiracy theory. Haslam's circle of trust, according to an article in The Athletic last year, is the Manning family and Jimmy Sexton and Bill Parcells. Sexton, is Nick Saban's agent. So the Mannings are royalty in New Orleans. The Children's Hospital in New Orleans is called the Mannings Children's Hospital. And the Mannings are royalty to Jimmy Haslam. Jimmy Haslam also loves headlines. That's why he pushed to draft Johnny Manziel and Baker Mayfield. They were the most talked about quarterbacks. It's why he signed a ridiculous guaranteed contract for Deshaun Watson. It would get discussed. So this is not a conspiracy theory. Okay. The circle of trust for Jimmy Haslam is the Manning family and Jimmy Sexton. Saban's, Manning, Haslam, South. That's why I've said. And there's two teams in this league that are going to be bad. The Saints are going to be bad, and the Browns are going to be bad. Now, that doesn't mean Saban, if he doesn't take the job, it's all lost for Cleveland. Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry, the GM, more than capable. But this story is a poorly kept secret. The Mannings, Haslam, Jimmy Sexton, Nick Saban. That's why I ran with that thing last week.
So that was Uncle Colin with some fireworks there, which what Colin Cowherd's saying is not only is the thirst for Arch Manning real, that it's the worst kept secret in the South, that Jimmy Haslam, he has his eyes set on Arch Manning, but he also mentioned Nick Saban as a coach. Now, I didn't react to this when this came out Wednesday because I wanted to make sure I did my proper homework and put out my feelers to see what's really going on here. I don't think Nick Saban's going to be the coach of the Browns. And why do I say that? Because he mentioned the name of Jimmy Sexton, right? The agent. Well, you know who else Jimmy Sexton represents? Kevin Stefanski. So I don't think Kevin Stefanski's going anywhere. And you go back, now let's go back to what Garrett Bush said earlier, right? About how Kevin Stefanski seemed unbothered at camp. Seemed very unbothered. Well, who seemed bothered? Andrew Berry. Why is that? And I think, like I said, because I believe he's on the clock. And I believe he's on the hot seat. Kevin Stefanski, if that's Jimmy Haslam's plan, and by all accounts, we've heard it twice in 1 week now from two reliable people. I think it's being put out there for a reason. Those guys got the green light to put that out there from somewhere. It's pretty clear and evident to me what's going on here. And Dylan Gabriel, like I said, Dylan Gabriel has to be the guy to save his job. If Dylan Gabriel can go out there and be Bo Nix, Andrew Berry may save his job, and the Browns may have to kick the can on an Arch Manning plan. Now, maybe not. Jimmy Haslam may be taking Arch Manning no matter what. That's why I put in the thumbnail the other day, Arch Manning no matter what, with a question mark, because just like the movie Draft Day, the GM had his guy no matter what. That might be what he's doing because his relationship is so close with the Mannings, right? But to me, I think Andrew Berry has a chance possibly to save his job. But when you hear him say, going back to the no sleeping comments because of Quinshon Judkins, and because really that's a loss for him this season of trying to win games, not having Judkins available, and you hear all these reports now, it all makes sense to me. Now, like I said, the Nick Saban stuff to me is a little silly. I mean, it's not silly because I think he's connecting. He's smart what he's doing there, connecting the dots. Colin's great at what he does. Saban's interested in taking an NFL job, and I get the connections and all that. But because, to me, like I said, because Stefanski is the same agent and Jimmy Sexton, I don't think Stefanski, to me, may actually know what's going on. And so, and like you heard what G. Bush said, he looks unbothered. And so why did they take Shedeur Sanders? And I think Shedeur Sanders, to me, is Jimmy Haslam's safety net to have some interest in a season that could go south very quickly. Because if Joe Flacco looks old and isn't the guy, and they're losing games early on the season, and you put Dylan Gabriel out there, and maybe he looks decent, but he looks, maybe not the best, maybe isn't the guy, and you're still losing games, and you have an ugly loss at Pittsburgh after you come back from London, right? And then Kenny Pickett, I don't think he's getting anybody excited. And at that point in the season, you're throwing out Kenny Pickett as your third string quarterback. I think people are kind of like not happy. And unless Kenny Pickett can do a Flacco run, which I highly doubt, maybe he could, but highly unlikely. Now you have a season where you could be in the middle of the season by Thanksgiving or before, maybe first week of November, after, or really let's say around Halloween. And we could be in a season around Halloween where you have no interest. The season's already over. All three of the other quarterbacks looked okay, but not great. You're not winning games. Jimmy Haslam has to turn to something to keep some interest in there. He's smart. It's like Colin Cowherd said something right on the money there. Jimmy Haslam's always going for the headlines. Jimmy Haslam's never going to have a team that it doesn't want to have a team any year. No owner does, really, but especially him that doesn't have the headlines. And he's got to make revenue. He's got to make money. These owners it's all business to them. And this team, Jimmy Haslam's not very interested in this year. I don't believe so. They're not trying to win. His plan is 2026, like everybody's reporting. And you could just tell by the way they're spending, how much money they spent on free agency this year. You look how much money they spent in free agency and how they traded out of the Travis Hunter pick to go get the first rounder next year, like the gentleman earlier, Rizzo, pointed out. That's why that was their biggest prize in that trade. It wasn't just Mason Graham was playing great, who's a blue chip prospect, but also it was really about that first round pick for next season, right? For the next year's draft, because it's all about Arch, right? But he also didn't. Jimmy Haslam did not spend a lot of money on this team this year because they're not trying to field a team to go out there and be successful this year. Years past, they spent a lot of money because they had to try to win with Deshaun Watson under contract. They're not trying to win it this year. Their spending says otherwise. Their spending says, or to me, if anybody says they're trying to win this year, their spending says otherwise. So they're not trying to win. But he has to win because he knows, I think Andrew Berry knows that he's on the hot seat. His days could be numbered. And, like I said, Kevin Stefanski having the same agent as all these guys with the Mannings and Jimmy Sexton and all this, I think Kevin will be just fine. And so who could replace Andrew Berry, though? Right? And I brought this up in my show Monday. And, he brought up Nick Saban as a guy to take over as head coach. But I think that, to me, that's silly. I don't think Nick Saban's going to be that coach of the Browns for the reasons I just pointed out. Right? And actually, let me see here, make sure I got the right thing. Okay, so back in 2017, Jimmy Haslam, speaking with the Manning family, at the time, Sashi Brown and Paul DePodesta were running everything. Obviously, Paul DePodesta is still here. But Jimmy Haslam and Sashi Brown were really running a lot of things, right? And this year in the past, or let's say in the past year, let me think here. Sorry, I got 20 tabs up my screen right now, and I'm trying to go through my notes, make sure I got everything down for you guys. All right. So this year's draft, right? 2025 draft. Andrew Berry was sitting there in the middle. Paul DePodesta was there right next to him. And a lot of times when you look at the pictures, Kevin Stefanski was just kind of sitting off to the side, and Andrew Berry and Paul DePodesta were sitting there talking to each other about picks. Maybe that meant something. But going back to 2017, right? Paul DePodesta's outlasted everybody since then. He's been here on all the GMs we fired since 2017, all the coaches. He's outlasted everybody. But there was one guy at that time that Jimmy Haslam was considering putting over Paul DePodesta, and his name is Peyton Manning. And he tried hiring Peyton Manning at that time. This is from Pro Football Talk. And at that time, Peyton Manning wasn't ready. And he said, I don't anticipate hiring Peyton Manning anytime soon. It says, quote, Peyton and I talk all the time. Haslam had to explain the majority of the time they discussed Tennessee football. Haslam said Peyton isn't sure what he wants to do in his future, and Haslam didn't close the door on Peyton eventually joining the Browns. So that last part there, Haslam didn't close the door on Peyton eventually joining the Browns. And then it also says here, if it ever happens, Peyton presumably would want equity in the franchise. If not, he'll wait for an opportunity with another franchise that offers him a piece of ownership in exchange for essentially behaving like the owner of the franchise. And so now you put it all together, right? You hear that we got Arch Manning that he's interested in, and you go to Andrew Berry looks like he could be on his way out of town if he doesn't win a lot of games this year and doesn't surprise a lot of people. I think, in my opinion, he brought up Nick Saban. I think the big name that comes along with Arch is going to be his uncle. I think Peyton Manning, that door never closed, like it says there. Clearly, at the time, it says, like you can see on the screen here, go back up here, that right here, Haslam didn't close the door on Peyton eventually joining the Browns. That door to me has never been closed. And I think at the time, Peyton Manning wasn't ready, like the article stated, that he just got out of football. I think Peyton wanted to enjoy his life for a little bit, probably with his family. He's having fun doing the whole Manning cast on Monday nights. But I don't think Peyton Manning's long-term plan was to sit up there and call Monday Night Football games, and a lot of the games he really doesn't care about. Let's be honest. So, uh, and hell, a lot of us don't watch some of those games. But I think his goal is to get back into it, and he wants to get back into football in that capacity of running a team. He's so passionate, so knowledgeable for a team. That to me is his long-term goal. But it has to be with the right owner and with the right organization. Well, if you're friends with Jimmy Haslam, and Jimmy Haslam's trying to go out and do everything he can, like we've heard today, to get your nephew, who I'm sure you want to run the team for your nephew, who Peyton says over the summer he was making throws that Peyton's never made, and obviously Peyton loves the kid, it's his nephew. I'm sure would want to be involved with that. What not a perfect scenario than to take over here as the president and maybe get some equity, like it says there. I don't know. This is 8 years later now, but I'm sure as a president of football operations, I'm sure Peyton would to have that opportunity to work with Jimmy Haslam, but also most importantly to build a team around his nephew Arch Manning. To me, that's a win-win situation. And again, this is why I said in my show the other day, I don't think Kevin Stefanski is going anywhere, because Kevin Stefanski has the same agent as all these guys with Jimmy Sexton. He brought up Jimmy Sexton in terms of Nick Saban, Colin Cowherd did, but that's Kevin's agent too. I think the guy, like I said, who's on the hot seat is Andrew Berry. And Dylan Gabriel and bringing back Joe Flacco, that was all Andrew Berry trying to find. He has to try to win some games this year. And to me, that's how I see it. I just don't. He's either Dylan Gabriel, like I said, Dylan Gabriel, maybe Joe Flacco can go on another miraculous run, or Dylan Gabriel's the next Bo Nix. But if that doesn't happen, Andrew Berry to me will be on his way out of here, because I think Jimmy Haslam already has his plan in place, and it's coming out now what his plan is. Like we're here with the Mannings, it's the Manning plan. And again, I don't think Nick Saban's going to be the coach. I think Kevin will be here because he has the same age as Jimmy Sexton. But Peyton Manning's a name I would keep an eye on. I think that would be the big splash with Arch. Is why not bring his uncle here? Because the door, like it says there, back in 2017 when he tried hiring him. Yeah, and I appreciate Susan Weeks here. Nick Saban said today on Fox News he unclearly has no interest in coaching the NFL at all. Yeah, and I agree with that, Sue. That's why I said, Susan, I thought it was silly to begin with. I don't think the big splash with Arch Manning, if the ownership is targeting Arch Manning, which I believe he is from multiple sources now, that's not the big splash with him is going to be his uncle, because Haslam already tried hiring him before. And like I said, this is why I said today, I believe, and I keep reiterating them, if I repeat myself, it's because I'm trying to make the same point. Andrew Berry is the one on the hot seat. He's got to, unless, like I keep saying, unless Dylan Gabriel is Bo Nix and they can win and somehow surprise a lot of people this year, he's probably on his way out of here. Because I think Peyton, and this is pure speculation on my part, but I think Peyton's going to be the one that Haslam's going to try to open that door again. And it all makes sense, because it's everything Haslam's doing right now is he's trying to build up a team to be full capacity and full go, a playoff contender, a Super Bowl contender possibly by 2029 when that new stadium opens. That's his whole goal. Is how can I get a team rolling and be at full capacity by that stadium opening? When that stadium opens, it's not only is it the grand stadium in Cleveland that's opening up, and it's all the things we could do with it, but the Browns have a franchise quarterback possibly, have all the big names. They're a splash team, they're a marketable team, box office team that everybody wants to. You want to see Arch Manning, we want to see Peyton Manning, right? The whole thing. And it makes sense to me too. I'm gonna end with this. Why the hell did he want Shedeur Sanders? Why would Jimmy Haslam really want Shedeur Sanders? And I pointed out earlier that I think, to me, he's the safety net for interest and revenue for Jimmy Haslam this season. That if all the other three quarterbacks go to shit and the team starts losing games, and there's no interest once it gets to October, like Halloween or Thanksgiving, and there's no interest, what not a perfect time to throw out Shedeur Sanders? Because you may get a game flexed at home on a Thursday night or Monday night, whatever, because maybe the Titans game, I don't know, versus Cam Ward, the Ward versus Shedeur show, that would be a good game to put him on. Maybe that game gets flexed in prime time. And it reminded me of this, why Bronny James, a lot of reasons why Bronny James was drafted really by the Lakers wasn't just because to satisfy LeBron, but also because it was great for business. Bronny James makes insane. This was back at last year, his rookie season. This was before Christmas even. He made an insane NBA rookie record. He sold over 500, I believe. Right here, the numbers are staggering. With over 500,000 jerseys sold at roughly $100 a pop, Bronny James has helped generate more than $50 million in revenue for the Lakers. Set an NBA record by surpassing even his father's rookie jersey sales. Not bad for a player who merely made an impact in actual games. And who's leading the league in jersey sales right now amongst rookies in the NFL? Oh, that's Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders, to me, was strictly business. It was a name, a flyer, maybe maybe there's something there, but I think the real reason why Jimmy Haslam wanted Shedeur Sanders and forced them to take Shedeur Sanders was really because I need some interest later on in that season. We got that Titans game scheduled later on in the year, and he's going to be a hot jersey seller because he's already a brand. Before he came in here, he's going to sell a lot of jerseys, get all that revenue money in 1 year, milk everything out of it, maybe get a couple TV games later in the year to keep us interested. And it also keeps the fans interested because, like I've said before, Jason Lloyd pointed this out yesterday, Jimmy Haslam's whole thing is let's keep putting that stadium in front of you, right? Just like this season. Don't pay attention how bad the team looks on paper, how much money we spent into it. Look at the new helmets we got coming out. Look at those Color Rush helmets, right? We got Shedeur Sanders. There's this quarterback battle, which there really isn't. They already know what it's pretty clear what their plan is. Like I broke it down today. And then later on in the season, once the team's losing a lot of games, all the other three quarterbacks maybe haven't had much success. Let's throw Shedeur Sanders out there because that'll keep us. That's national headlines, right? And maybe we'll get a couple TV games or one of them at home, like the game against the Titans I keep talking about. That'd probably be the one I'd look at, throw them out there. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we got, and don't forget, they're going to tell you a lot this year about the new stadium. They're going to tell you a lot about the new stadium, trust me, because they don't want you focused on the product on the field this year. And, oh, by the way, what's going to help with that stadium? Getting that revenue. Right, getting that Shedeur revenue, that's going to help with some of that. Not all of it, but it's going to help with a lot of it. I mean, if Bronny James can get $50 billion, Shedeur's a bigger brand than Bronny James, I believe, coming out of college. So that's their plan. It's all business. Jimmy Haslam has his plan, and that's why you're going to hear this Manning rumors. You're going to hear them whispered all throughout the season, all the way up till the draft, because it's really that's going to give a lot of fans. That's their hope, right? That's going to be their way to keep fans engaged and tell everybody we have a future plan. We're not going to just sit idle with what we got. And so, again, going back to my thing, I believe Andrew Berry is on the clock. And the best way Andrew Berry can keep his job is, like I said, if Dylan Gabriel or Joe Flacco can go on a miraculous run, that's the only way I think he keeps his job. Other than that, I think you're looking at the Manning family taking over in 2026 because he's already tried. We've heard the Arch Manning stuff, and he already tried hiring Peyton once in 2017. And like it says here in that article, at that time, the door was never going to be closed for him to make a return again. It's 8 years later. His nephew's coming out. He could possibly run the team for his nephew. Well, not a better scenario. And the relationship they have with Kevin Stefanski through Jimmy Sexton. And just all the relationships, like Colin Cowherd pointed out there. That's what I see going on here, possibly. But I'm going to hear what some of your guys' comments, react to that before I get out of here. Let's see here. Shopping Man, Tune In Sports. If you guys like any NBA content, Cavs content, go subscribe to Tune In Sports. Great guy. We had a good show yesterday. Check it out. Breaking down all things Cavs, talk about the latest on LeBron. I know that's been kind of quiet, but I gave my update on it yesterday. So you want to see what I had to say about that, because I haven't spoken on it, go over to Tune In Sports and check out that video. Shout out to Tune. He said, did Myles Garrett really say he expects to get to the Super Bowl this year? Yeah, I think Myles was saying all the right things to him. He's showing that leadership improvement that everybody wants to see. So, but is it reality? No. Defensive Player of the Year, sure, but you have to make the playoffs first. You have to first make the playoffs. I don't think they're making the playoffs this year. Let's see here. Okay. Alien overlords. Now I see your comment. Let's see. I'll read it. The private investigative firm from investigate Junkins needs to be fired. This is a narcissist, probably a psychopath who was a serial abuse of women, allegedly, who was hated by his teammates both at MSU and Ohio State. I'll have to look into that, Alien Overlords. I appreciate your comment, but we'll have to look into that. Definitely an ongoing situation. I don't think he's gonna be hitting the field anytime soon. I can tell you that. So, yeah, and yeah, like what Susan said here, I appreciate your comment, Susan. That's what, and I agree with you. I read this. I agree, Susan. I don't think the whole Brown side of things. I don't believe that. I think that was more silly. I think that was more of Colin, trying to connect the dots. But Kevin Stefanski has the same agent as all these guys, as the Mannings, as with Jimmy Sexton. So I don't think Kevin's going anywhere. I believe 100% Shador will start week 1. Gabriel was hired to be a backup. Kenny will be traded. Flacco will also back up. Shador be with the ones next week. I'll be back to say I told you so. Well, I appreciate your comments, Susan, and maybe you might be right, Susan, but I just got to go off of what I'm seeing. You know what I mean? I'm just reacting to what I'm seeing, and I give my analysis of what I think's happening, and not what I think personally, but what I think's happening right now. If Shador's throwing to equipment staff people at practice, he's not hitting the field anytime soon. And it looks like, just based off how the reps are being divvied out in practice, Flacco's going to start week 1. Gabriel looks like the number 2 right now. And I think Gabriel's going to be pushed out there by mainly the front office, because the front office is, like I said earlier, they're banking their future on Dylan Gabriel this year. Maybe Joe Flacco even. One of the two. But I think it's leaning more towards Gabriel, because Flacco have one more little run in him? Possibly, but he looks old. Like everybody's saying, he looks old. And I think their best shot of having a spark would be with Dylan Gabriel, because Dylan Gabriel ultimately was the front office's pick. Shador was forced down by the owner, and I explained a couple minutes ago why I think he really took Shador Sanders. And so what does that say about Shador? What does that mean for Shador Sanders, though? If I'm Shador Sanders, I mean, him maybe getting cut may not be a bad thing for him, because he may be able to go somewhere where they may give him. I'm not saying the Browns are hindering him from having a chance, but he doesn't seem to be in their long-term plans. It seemed to be more just a business decision, and it's more of just an interest and revenue thing to me by ownership. If Shador really wants a shot to go succeed somewhere, and he has the right mindset, I like what he said today at the press conference. I think the kids handled it very well. He has the right mindset, and I think I said all along I thought he had the higher upside than Dylan Gabriel just because of his size. Both were accurate, but I thought Shador was just a really natural pocket passer in college from what he showed at times, and I think coming up in that Shermer system, I think will help him. I think he's a very likable kid, and there's a lot of things I like about Shador a lot, but it doesn't appear to me right now that he's getting the chance here in Cleveland, because I just don't think he's in their long-term plans. And I think the Browns could just say, well, he's a 5th-round quarterback. He's a 5th rounder. What 5th rounder? That's why I hear people say, a lot of the Browns people, what 5th rounder really makes the team anyways? I mean, that's kind of like the way of pushing him out the door, the excuse in a way, if you want to. I don't say excuse, but the I don't know, the way they could justify it. You know what I mean? So if I'm Shador, though, I'll be honest. If I'm Shador, I wouldn't mind leaving. And I always found it interesting too that Dylan Gabriel, I believe, bought a home here in Cleveland. Him and his, I believe, wife or whatever. I believe he's married to fiance, whoever she is. They already bought a house here in Cleveland. Shador, if I'm not mistaken, was living in a hotel. So that alone may tell you, some guy may know one thing. Yeah, I'm going to be in Cleveland for the whole year and probably playing a lot, Dylan Gabriel. And another guy is probably thinking, I'm waiting to see if I can be on the team. I don't know. Let's see here. Romero, Andrew Berry was just fired. I don't know. Report. What if number 12 gets him there? And maybe he does. And that's like, and I appreciate your comments, Roscoe J. Riggins. Here, one thing I think I said about Shador, I would never doubt the kid, because I think if he can come in there late in that season and somehow go on a run and win a bunch of games, then Jimmy Haslam might be sitting there thinking, because here's what I think Haslam's looking at it. It's like what Colin Cowherd said. Haslam wants the splash. He wants the big name. That's why you're hearing Arch Manning. That's a splash. But if Shador Sanders goes out there late in the season and somehow has just a great run, like it really impresses a lot of people, almost to the point where it's like, we got to bring this kid back. Jimmy Haslam, I don't think he's going to be mad at that, because Shador Sanders is our number 1 in jersey sales. He's box office. Everybody's gonna be tuning in to watch him. He's already got a big brand coming in here. So, he could, but I don't think Shador's going to get a chance to get on the field till later in the season. And by that point, that team's probably going to be out of playoff contention, in my opinion. I watched an interview during the draft that confirmed that Barry did not the owner drafted Shador Sanders. Not sure the rumor came from that the owner drafted him. That's hearsay. Well, here's what I think, Susan. I think Andrew Barry is going to say all the right things publicly and make it look like everything's, peaceful and everything. But based on their actions, to me, actions speak louder than words. And covering the Browns, and everybody that's watched the Browns because from afar for a long time here in Cleveland, that I don't think that's the case. To me, and a lot of people don't believe that. Even a lot of reporters don't believe that, have insight that he's not. That was forced down because they took Dylan Gabriel first. And that's why, and the way Dylan Gabriel's, and the actions are showing it right now. The reps Dylan Gabriel's getting in practice, the opportunities getting with the first team, how he's being pushed up to number 2 already, it sounds like from a report I read earlier. And Shador's throwing equipment staff guys, and Shador was taken after him in the 5th round. To me, that was forced by Haslam. And it's something Haslam's done here in Cleveland before. Deshaun Watson was ultimately forced that trade. That Deshaun Watson trade was ultimately forced by Haslam, which actually came out in reports, and Haslam pretty much admitted it over the offseason. So if you know Haslam's past history and how this, he's the one that forced Shador Sanders. And it all makes sense from a business standpoint why he did it. If I'm Shador Sanders, though, obviously, do I think he was better in a 5th-round pick? Absolutely. But I think Shador Sanders might actually benefit from getting out of here, honestly. I think if Shador Sanders can get out of Cleveland and go somewhere where he can maybe excuse me, I think I cut out. If Shador Sanders can go somewhere and be a free agent, or I think a team could give him an opportunity that actually has a plan for him, I think he could succeed. But right now, just to me, it doesn't appear like the Browns have a. And if he's throwing an equipment staff, guys, people like you and me and you, Paramjohn, shout out to you, Paramjohn, good to see what's up. If he's throwing people like me and Paramjohn at practice, that's not a guy that's going to be hitting the field anytime soon. It sounds like a guy, if his name wasn't Shador Sanders, if I didn't know that was Shador Sanders and walked out there and saw that, I would say that guy's getting cut. Honestly, that's what we've always said in football. Anybody that's been around football, we would say the guy that's throwing passes to equipment staff guys, basically the 4th stringer, he ain't making the team. Because those teams don't go into the season with 4 quarterbacks. I think he'll be on the team. Personally, like I said, I think he'll be kept around for later in the season to keep interest. But because I think Kenny Pickett will be the odd man out before the season starts. I think he'll be traded maybe for a late round pick or something like that. I don't know. Maybe the Saints will call or somebody. I don't know. But I don't think he's getting traded or cut. But I'm just saying where he is right now in the depth chart and how they're putting him through practice, he's not in their plans early on or in the middle of the season. He said, I wouldn't mind Arch. Paramjohn, that might be where it's heading, bud. I mean, it's getting hot in the streets with him. I think and Arch, he's a very interesting. I know a lot of scouts think he's going to be the next big one if he pans out this year. He's going to be the next big, like Joe Burrow type prospect. We'll see it. We'll see week 1 here in Ohio against the Buckeyes. So that's going to be a fascinating story all year. I have 5 assignments due to 11:59 today. I got time. They are not trade or cut him. No, I don't believe they are either, Susan. I don't think they're going to trade or cut him. I think, like I said, I think he'll be kept around for later in the season. And once the other 2 guys, which probably, unless they somehow start winning games and Dylan Gabriel's, Bo Nix, or Joe Flacco's on another run, that's when Shador will hit this field and, keep interest, have fan interest. And if Dylan Gabriel's not a guy by that Titans game, like I said, against Cam Ward, that's when I think Shador will be thrown out there. And that game would probably get flexed in the prime time because it'll be Cam Ward versus, Shador Sanders at home in Cleveland, prime time game. So that's how I see it. But appreciate you, Susan. Appreciate you, Paramjohn, Roscoe, Alien Overlords now. What's his name? Tune In Sports. Shout out to all you guys. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, and share because we'll keep you up to date here with all the Shador stuff. We'll be covering it all year. And I love your guys' input in the chat. This is a show where I want to let you guys speak as well and share your opinions. Have a good weekend to you as well, Susan. And please like, subscribe, and share. We'd love to see you guys back here. And, we appreciate your support. We're doing this all for just the love of it and to give you guys good quality content and from our perspective and let you guys voice your opinion as well. It's an open platform. So please hit the subscribe button. It's free. It's a simple tap of the button. It really helps us go a long way. Honestly, no subscription goes unnoticed, believe me, because it's been a grind. So we've been doing this for 3 years now, and this channel is all supported sports as well. It's a lot of mental health side of things, my journey of overcoming my agoraphobia and anxiety stuff, and also we interviews as well, other people's success stories as well. We have 2 other shows coming back here. The Professional Fan was live the other night. The Mike Antonese, he covers all things NFL, NFL draft, Browns, and at a deeper level. And then we have The Fix coming back, a sports betting show. They'll be back here in mid-August. I just spoke to Dan the other day, so they're going to be back in mid-August, right before football season. They'll have all your week-to-week parlays, sports betting for all the week, every week's games, fantasy football, and they'll give their insight and analysis on everything as well. So hit the subscribe button because we got some cool things coming over here. Quote, if I were Shador and my team was heavily invested in an unproven college like Arch Manning, I'd prefer to be traded or even cut rather than remain in a situation. Multiplier, I agree with you because that's what I was saying. Multiplier, I don't think Shador has a chance here. If Shador wants a legit shot, like a legit shot to hit the field and have a fair chance to maybe become something on a team, a starter one day, I don't think it's going to happen here in Cleveland because I think ownership already has their eyes set on Arch. And if he's like I said, if he's throwing the guys in practice that are not even on the roster, they're not receivers, he's throwing equipment guys. Yeah, that's a big red flag, and it's not his fault. I just think that he was drafted by the owner, and it was really more for revenue reasons. It's the same reason why I think the Lakers took Bronny James ultimately, not just to satisfy LeBron, but like I said there earlier, this article here, he made $50 million of revenue for the Lakers, which was a record last season. And Shador Sanders is also leading the NFL in rookie jersey sales right now as well. So I'm sure he's on the same pace for the Browns. Yeah. So, but that's all I got for you guys today. Appreciate you, Multiplier. Appreciate all the comments. And like I said, please like, subscribe, share, and all that good stuff. And I'll get that out of there. And I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out of here.
God.